Hi everyone, Crazy Keto Guy here. Um, I'm just doing a quick video. It's kind of a follow-up. I did one talking about type 2 diabetes. And as you know, I mean, I've had type 2 diabetes for 15 years. Um, Pretty much ignored it, which I'm pretty ashamed of, to be honest. And ashamed is a pretty strong word, but seriously, diabetes is a terrible disease. Um, Now, again, I don't know. Some may, some may not. There's type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And now, my understanding, not being a doctor or a scientist, but somebody that's got type 2 diabetes, you'd think I'd know this inside out. Um, my understanding is type 1 diabetes is basically you stop the production of insulin from your pancreas. I believe it's the pancreas. Again, I'm not a scientist. So please, if I get one or two of these little tidbits wrong, I apologize in advance. But yeah, so type 1 diabetics can't or don't create any insulin naturally in their body. Consequently, they have to inject exogenous insulin. Type 2 diabetics still produce insulin, sometimes not enough, or that the body doesn't use it efficiently enough. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a good analogy, but somebody said to me it's like trying to put a round key into a square hole lock. So yeah, it just doesn't work as efficiently or as well. Um, so I'm sure they don't want my sympathy, but I kind of feel sorry. And certainly type 1 diabetes is a lot more serious, in my opinion, against just my opinion, than type 2, which is, well, I mean, they're both manageable through the medication. I mean, but yeah, I can't really, you know, pass on. I don't want to say advice because, again, I'm not, as I keep saying, a doctor or a scientist where I'm in a position to pass on advice that I think anyone should overly act on. But maybe I'm sharing my experience, my ideas on it, and if you want to go away and research any of this a little bit more, then for sure, definitely do. Um, but so when I started as a diabetic, I was on 2 tablets. Well, I say two. I took 2 different medications that I was on. Metformin, I think one that most diabetics will associate with. I took twice a day. 1 tablet with my breakfast, 1 tablet with my dinner, and uh, I'm on glycoside now, but I know glycoside. No, I can't think. It was saying very similar, but it wasn't glycoside, but it was a similar kind of name. It was another glyc something. And again, I took that once in the morning and once in the evening. Uh, so again, I'm not quite sure what those tablets do, but my understanding was you took one before the meal and one after the meal. And I always remember, I think it was saying along the lines of one of them helps promote the production of insulin and the other one drags it around the body. I think that's pretty good, pretty close. Um, as the years went by, and I didn't get my blood sugars under control. Now I've got to take a lot of the blame for this next bit because I was telling the doctors and the diabetic nurses and all of that that I was adhering to a good healthy diet and I was exercising, which was probably the biggest lie I've ever told in my life. And I used to be a salesman. So that gives you some idea of how bad a diabetic I was actually being and why my blood sugars were not actually coming under control. So consequently, the doctors gave me more and more medication. My dosage of the two medications I was on went up until finally I was on the maximum doses of both, and still no joy with the blood sugars. So that was then when they introduced insulin. I put it off, I put it off, I put it off. I didn't want to start on insulin. I'd heard all sorts of things about putting weight on, about being on it for the rest of your life. And I put it off until I couldn't put it off no more. And then that started a journey of X amount of units, growing, until they threw another insulin at me. So I was already on I was on one insulin that I took twice a day. That was a quick release insulin called Humulin, and then they threw another one at me, which was Lantus, a slow release insulin that I took at night. Again, I've already waffled on for 6 minutes, and this is going to be a quick video apparently. My point is, through my own stupidity of lying and not adhering to a good healthy diet and that, for 15 years I just was on that up curve of medication. So I've been looking at some stats, and you will see me look at the other screen. I've got two screens, a bit posh. You will see me look at the other screen to reference some of the stats, but these are stats that are both from the NHS and also Diabetes UK. That's the two references that I'm looking at. But I am mind blown by the Diabetic stats. And this is like, this is like an epidemic. This is like an outbreak of some freaking, I nearly said Ebola virus, and of course it's not the Ebola virus. That would be a bit of a Boris Johnson moment, I think I'm going to call that. But this is, people should be running around and screaming about this. I'm just, as I say, mind blown. So stat number one that I want to mention. So in the UK currently, there is supposedly, hang on, let me just get this one back up. 67 million people in the UK. I hope that's quite accurate. It says 2019. Yeah, so we've got 67 million people living in the UK. Now, diabetes at the moment, they are saying 1 in 15 people have got diabetes at the moment. And that equates to 4.7 million people in the UK having diabetes. So 1 in 15. They're saying within the next 5 years, by the year 2025, that number will go past 5 million. Is that surpass? Is that the right term? Will go past 5 million. So you're getting like 1 in 13. And the number is just growing. Now, again, not taking or playing down type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes accounts for 90% of that number. 90% of the 4.7 million people have type 2 diabetes. There's that little emoji with the head, half of the head exploding. I wish I could be skillful enough to put that on my video at the moment. Maybe somebody will do it for me, do an edited version of this. Now, another crazy stat, okay, so if we take into account that 1 in 15 people in the UK have diabetes, 90% of the 4.7 million that equates to have type 2 diabetes, The next bit that is amazing is, this is from the NHS website. I'm going to read it, so apologies for not looking into the camera. Hospitals are being deluged by, wait for this number, 5,000 type 2 diabetics a day. A day! 5,000 people with type 2 diabetes a day deluging hospitals. New figures have revealed that 1 in 10 patients are now suffering from a form of illness linked to being overweight and inactive. Now, that's obviously not just diabetes, but 1 in 10 patients are patients that are basically suffering from an illness to do with weight or inactivity. There were more than 1.7 million admissions to hospitals last year for people with type 2 diabetes, costing the NHS an estimated, sit down, £22 million a day. The figure has doubled in a decade. And basically the NHS are flagging it as a real concern, obviously. I mean, that's stating the obvious. So again, £22 million a day. And they're saying that is just from the 1.7 million admissions to hospital last year for people with type 2 diabetes. Now, again, I don't know how accurate these surveys are or these stats are. You know, it could be somebody that had type 2 diabetes and they've gone into hospital because they've broken their leg. You know, that's not because of their diabetes. So, yeah, maybe it's, you know, the vast umbrella of things out. But, you know, I guess it's one of the things hard to work out what is actually relating to the diabetes. So anyway, my point is this, right? I can't say this for type 1 diabetics because, as I say, I don't believe it's the same. I think we go down like a similar river. I'm going to use that term, but maybe in different kinds of boats. Maybe that's a good one. One's paddling, one's got a motorboat. So I can't say this for type 1s, but for type 2s, I'm sorry, type 2s, if I'm going to upset you now. We can sort our shit out. I ignored my diabetes for 15 years because I was an idiot. I have done irreversible damage to my body that even now I've changed my life will not ever be repaired. But I think for type 2 diabetics that are just diagnosed or early into it, I think the sooner you make these life changes, there is a chance that you will put your diabetes into remission. It will still be there. If you change your ways and go back to the evil days, it will come back to haunt you. I'm not saying it's curable. I'm not saying you fix the pancreas and it starts producing insulin and the B cells and all of that science stuff that I've looked at. I'm not saying that's possible. I don't know if it is. I'm sure just by changing your diet that wouldn't repair it to that degree. But what I'm telling you is my HbA1cs used to be up 12.5, my one before I made my life change. Before that, 14, 15, crazy HbA1cs, 3 times a normal person's. My HbA1c now is 6. My blood sugars are consistently between 5 and 7, okay? Sometimes I have them go slightly below that, and in fact, so much so I've had hypos, not recently, but at the start I did experience hypos, which are not nice, and whole different, well, part of the same subject, but for a different video. So this is the bottom line. We need to go on to a low carb diet as soon as possible. We need to cut out processed carbohydrates. We need to cut out processed sugars. Okay? Yes, that means bread, potatoes, rice, pasta, cakes, sweets, biscuits. Yes, the yummy stuff. But the yummy stuff that A, is not doing you any good, and not doing your family any good, and not doing the NHS any good, because we're putting a burden on the country. So being an idiot like I was, all right, I did it for 15 years. You may choose to do it for 15 years. You might do it longer. But we are playing Russian roulette. You know, all of the things that can happen, losing your eyesight, losing your limbs, having a heart attack, having a stroke, kidney failure. You know, when your blood sugars are running at 2.5, 3 times what a normal person's is consistently over that sort of time, how something catastrophic hasn't happened to me, I don't know. But thank God, touch wood, that it didn't. And now I've addressed it. So I'm not going to waffle on too much more, because there are other videos that talk about these. But low carb diet, I believe if you can, you know, be disciplined enough, a ketogenic diet. So low carb diet, I think they say, is under like 150 grams, but that to me is, if I have 150 grams of carbs in a day, my blood sugars are through the roof. I haven't even tried that actually, but I know when I've had treat days and pushed the limits a little bit, how my blood still react to carbohydrates badly. So I think ketogenic diet is the way to go. Getting your carbs around 20 grams of carbs a day or under. It's very hard, but as I say, great results on the strength of it. I think intermittent fasting is something that, again, gives the body a chance to reset, to repair. There's a thing called autophagy. I can never say it. I hope that sounded mildly right. AUTOPHAGY, which is basically something that happens when your body gets rid of all the dead cells, old cells, whatever, and replaces them with new ones. And that happens again through intermittent fasting. A little bit of a debate about when it happens, how long it takes within fasting to get that reaction. But trust me, these things are worth looking into, because they will help you control, manage your blood sugars. As I say, my HbA1c has gone down from 12.5 and above to 6. At the same time as I did that, I've reduced all of my diabetic medication by between 50 and 100%, including totally eradicating the need for my slow release insulin, which I was on 14 units a day, Lantus. I'm now on 0. My other insulin, Humulin, my 2 doses, which were 24 units twice a day of the quick release insulin, Humulin, I now take 6 units a day. Now, hopefully, to a normal person watching that, they'll be like, oh, don't know what that means. To a diabetic, hopefully you will understand how great that is. And it is my goal, it's now November, it's my goal by February of next year to be totally dependent of any insulin. I'm not saying I'll be totally off of diabetic medication, but definitely off of insulin. Anyway, definitely finishing. So that was just some stats that I found on diabetes that blew my mind. And as I say, I think the NHS, or more so the government, needs to be being very proactive in promoting a low carb diet / keto diet, because I honestly believe it is the way that we are going to get control of diabetes, type 2 diabetes in the UK. And our epidemic is like dwarfed by the epidemic in the USA. So again, it just amazes me in this modern world that we live in, that this disease, caused really by the diet that we've had for the last 60 odd years, is not being addressed more urgently. Anyway, Crazy Keto Guy. Please follow, like, share, do whatever. Get my name out there because I want to be famous like Thomas DeLauer and make loads of money. Thank you all. Love you.